Whittingham had a Maximum Whittingham observation the other day where he's like, Piers, underrated.
Who doesn't love a good pier? We went out to Manhattan Beach, and we were having a nice time. We left a bar, and we walked out onto a pier. It was dark outside, a little bit of moonlight. When it's a full moon, piers are incredible. But when have you ever gone to a pier and gone, oh, that sucks? You're walking over the ocean. It is a construct over the ocean. You get to walk out.
You've never been to New York?
Stare into the
Have you ever been to New York?
I have. I've been to New York, but not to a pier.
Let me tell you something. There's a pier where you look over, and depending on what time of year there are 16 bodies bobbing up to the surface. I'm sure within that city there are piers that you're like, meh.
Brownwater piers.
Let me tell you something. Any city out there that is struggling to get traffic to their waterway, if you build a pier, it will immediately grow in business, in foot traffic, in whatever it is you want to do.
I think he's right
to
about
grow your
this.
city. A pier is an instant improvement on any city with a waterway.
I feel like you just walked into a Parks and Rec office room and very firmly told them how to fix their economy because they don't have enough foot traffic with their tourists. Just build a pier. Guillermo, put it on the poll at LeBatard Show. Piers, underrated or overrated?
I think what happened with Whittingham is he went to maybe the nicest pier in America, Huntington Beach, right? That pier?
No, it was Manhattan Beach.
Oh, okay.
Huntington Beach.
Well,
I've been told it's not for me, Clive. But the Santa Monica Pier, by the way, like they've taken that and lifted it to another level. What wasn't my favorite? It's a very touristy experience. But if you just go to a God's honest pier, you stand there and you absorb the views. There is no better place to absorb views on planet Earth than a good pier.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please, at LeBatard Show. Does California do the best piers? I don't know why. In America, I think they do the best piers in America. I don't know why Jessica was making a sour face the entire time that you were talking about piers.
A God's honest pier.
It was an honest pier created by God.
Pier, Dan.
That's right. It's the best kind of pier. You've been crazed on a number of fronts here, Jessica, but not the least of which your Philadelphia has now made you crazy and our show crazy because we're fighting with Philadelphia. But Stugotz, you've been denied some of this stuff. You have missed it because Apple Television is not something that you are streaming.
No.
But because during the pandemic, a lot of content couldn't get made and people were slowed down and there was a supply chain issue with just the ability to make things. I have seen Apple Television and the amount of money that they are pouring into things looks epic. What was the Lord of the Rings trailer the other day?
Dan, that's Amazon. It's the first billion-dollar
fine.
show.
Well, but all of them. Okay, my bad. But Apple, Amazon, all these streaming services.
No, you're right. They're both putting tons of money into original content. This Amazon show has been in the works for years. And the Super Bowl was the first time that we, the fans, got a glimpse of what they're actually making. And there aren't a ton of well-known names that have been cast in the show. There's been very little behind the scenes. Everything has been completely, locked up. Most people have kind of guessed what it's going to be about. And now we finally get a sense of, what time period it's in and that sort of thing. But the trailer came out. I have some pretty mixed feelings about it. But it's also only just a trailer, so you can't really tell what the actual show is going to look like. But yeah, it's going to be huge. Even if the storyline and the characters stink, it's going to look
I just can't believe how big it looked.
It's going to look like a movie, but it's TV.
I could not believe the size of it. You said you had mixed opinions. You must be hugely invested in it. But I'm watching it. I'm like, how the hell does anyone outside of the movies make something that's this large in scope? I know Game of Thrones on HBO is similar, but I just couldn't believe the size of what I was watching, just sort of farted out by Bezos's side project.
They've got so much work to do, though. If you think about the actual movies, Netflix ran away with the streaming wars. Disney Plus, HBO Max. If you're one of those studios that's trying to catch up, you have to make things that look like that in order to get your $7.99, or in the case of Prime Video, what is it, $89? I don't know what the price of Amazon Prime is anymore, but you're spending a shed load of money to try and make up the ground quickly because they were late.
Yeah, and Amazon has made a couple fantasy shows like this that have been pretty big budgets with stars like the Wheel of Time show that had Rosamund Pike in it. That I think got renewed for another season, but it wasn't a huge fan favorite. But this, you already have source material for it. It's going to be based off of a lot of Tolkien's writings in the Silmarillion. So there's already a fan base that's going to watch this show. Yeah, I'm a nerd. Get over it, Mike. And so they're banking on the fact that all these people who fell in love with the original Lord of the Rings films are going to come back and watch it, and it's going to be a huge hit.
It's smart.
A la Game of Thrones. Yeah, but the problem is that, like, the Hobbit movies came out between the Lord of the Rings movies and now, and those were not very good. Like, Lord of the Rings fans did not love the Hobbit movies because of the way that they were shot. They weren't shot like Lord of the Rings original films were. They were shot in a beautiful cinematic way. They like swept the Oscars with The Return of the King. It was a really well done film that happened to be in the fantasy genre. But The Hobbit was kind of like it seemed like it was Peter Jackson cashing in. They filmed it in like 48 frames per second. It looked like there was motion smoothing. It looked like there was a ton of CGI. It looked like a video game at times. And it wasn't like fans who loved the book, The Hobbit, like the source text, didn't love those films because they just were so kind of over the top, like took too much away from the source material. And so I think fans are a little nervous about this series being, having some material to work with, but then also we're throwing so much money on it. Do you want to make a movie or a show that's going to look expensive because of how much like CGI and computer effects you've put into it, or something that has a ton of practical effects like the original movies, and something that's going to really like use that money to shoot in a location and build a really convincing looking set? Because like fantasy is really hard to make look real, and that's why the original movies did so well.
Oh, but it's such a cool time for content. It's
also a confusing time for content.
But that
was as comprehensive of a breakdown.
It was
like, that was
amazing.
I've been waiting to talk about this for like
we
3
could
years,
tell. Yeah.
since I was hired. You guys haven't let me talk about Lord of the Rings at all.
Is that why you're wearing a
just
cloak?
makes fun of me. Yes. Jessica the Black.
It is. You guys tell me, because you are in the golden age of a whole lot of people throwing a whole lot of money at a whole lot of things. And these oil wells, Stugotz, the business isn't that hard to understand at the top end, which is go find the things that people care about so much that they will have to, for $7.99, get you for a month, because they cannot miss. They have to get this giant $100 million, $200 million project, and they're going to get their money back $7.99 at a time. What are the unearthed oil wells? What are the things that have those kinds of fan bases that you can tap? Because Lord of the Rings, done well, has the fan base. You got to do it well. They're putting the standard as we're going to have to spend a lot of money on this, because this is a discerning group of people who care deeply and unreasonably about the thing.
Unreasonably, please, Dan. It's my whole life.
What
right
are the
here,
untapped ones? What are the fan bases that are untapped in this realm? Because it is smart of Apple and Amazon to go see if they can go get those cluster audiences and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get those cluster audiences just to get those credit cards every month.
I've always thought that, and I don't know if this is even logistically possible because of the rights and everything like that, but I've always thought that if HBO or any of these media companies wanted to turn Harry Potter into a 10 season-long television series, like prestige television series, that would be worth at least $1 billion in producing the first season, because that has like one of the biggest fan bases in the world, and I think fans of that series were unhappy with some of the ways that the movie rushed through certain plot lines, and so it really needs more time to develop those storylines.
Just felt like covered terrain. Like everything.
But so is Lord of the Rings. Like so is Game of Thrones, and they're gonna do a Game of Thrones spinoff.
Right.
Like.
But I'm with Chris. Like, enough Harry Potter, right? Like, how much more can a Harry Potter fan
watered
take,
down, doesn't it?
Right?
Well, yeah, I think that's a real concern. Like, I think that's why you have to be careful with pissing off the people who are the automatic built-in audience for episode 1.
But people say enough of Star Wars, and they've done fine.
True.
You can't make enough of this stuff. We really are living in a time where all of it is piecemeal, all of it is UFC. We are living through the time that very soon you're going to have to pay for each of these things individually, and everyone is fighting to get in the front of that line. Amazon, Apple, all the people with the huge dollars are trying, no, please give me your $7.99 a month. Make me television.
We're also getting to the point where things that were made like 20, 25 years ago, like we already got reboots coming. Like, that's old news now. Now things that were made in like 2000, right before digital, like that looks old, and so we have to redo it all.
But everything has a shelf life, doesn't it? I mean, everything, you get exhausted. Like Rocky, right? I hit the end of Rocky at Rocky 5. It was over. They ran out of
Don't
ideas.
compare Rocky to J.R.R. Tolkien
Rocky
The Hobbit.
5, man.
Please,
You will
Stugotz.
never-
Rocky and Frodo Baggins, like, we cannot even compare these characters.
Didn't you like Creed?
Why are you pretending
I did
that
like
you're
Creed,
done with
yes.
Rocky?
Tolkien wrote an entire world. He wrote an entire language. He wrote the language of
Enough
We
of
Elvish.
talked about
Tolkien,
Rocky
please.
today. We talked about him. We
Yeah,
talked
but
about
I
him
never talk
almost
about Rocky
every
5.
day.
When I rank the Rockies, Rocky 5 is
Not
never in my
compare
top 5
Rocky
Rockies.
to Lord
I
of the
mean,
Rings, Stugotz, ever again in front of me. Ever.
5 of them.